So I realized in all those conversations that designers were equally excited about learning and also sharing. And that kind of sparked, something in my mind. And, like, just the same way if you would look at it, right, as an individual, what makes you a mature designer, right? The fact that you can accept feedback, right? Learn from that, take from it, and sort of use those things to learn and grow. Now, applied to the entire organism of the design team, right? We get feedback, we internalize it, we learn from it, right? And then we kind of start teaching ourselves and growing into those aspects of things.
Hello and welcome to the Design Explorers, a podcast by the Agoda design team. Agoda.com is a global digital travel platform where you can book hotels, vacation rentals, flights, and airport transfer. In this podcast, we will be sharing the awesome work of our design team, discuss interesting trends in relation to design and travel, and talk about product design in general. My name is Nachum Yamin and I will be your host for the show. I really enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking with Andre. You know, his passion is really contagious and his enthusiasm, not just with the design studio, with the 3D work and all that stuff, is very, his creativity is, you get a sense of play. You really like to play with ideas and play and make jokes and have fun.
There's this quote floating around on the internet about, I think Einstein said it, or Picasso, where I think he mentioned everyone is born with creativity. It's just how you want to, it's whether you keep it as you grow into an adult. Something like that, right? And I think Andre is
perfect example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's a perfect example of that quote. And I think it's great. You can really learn from him, and it forces me to reflect in terms of what am I doing that I think I'm automatically staying away from, even without noticing. So his initiative in terms of design studio is also great, and the vision that he has. I think it's really spot on in terms of his intentions, because I feel a lot of the things that he had mentioned that needed solving for. I think as a new joiner, especially, there's a lot of, not necessarily imposter syndrome, but you're still scouting out the room. Like, am I supposed to do something? You're a little, you're more reserved and conservative in your actions from your day to day. And I think I slowly have to peel those layers away and I guess display my true self and be a child again in front of everyone, and having a platform to share my true self with everyone, with the platform or organizers that really cares about that is something that, truly is valuable in any company, I feel like.
Definitely. And I think, what I also love about his initiative is that he took it into a practical place. It's not just knowledge sharing for the sake of sharing.
Yeah, I mean, he does mention that he was previously a teacher, which I didn't know myself, right? And I think he's bringing that aspect of, how to communicate what he intends to communicate in the best manner as possible. And so I think he's bringing that perspective and then applying that in a very different context, actually. So I'm glad that he's the one that is actually, doing all of this. He's the best person to I feel like head spear this project. Oh, spearhead. Spearhead, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned the value. I think it's very important for teammates, not only having the knowledge but also building the confidence, and having someone like Andre leading this with his kind of educational background and actually guiding people understand their needs. I think this is very helpful to build the confidence and just avoid. We mentioned in the episode like imposter syndrome and the fear of trying things.
Yeah.
On a personal note, I face this like imposter syndrome all the time. And I always have this in the back of my mind. I'm not really a verbal person. And part of this practice with the podcast was also to work on that, right? To improve those skills.
Yeah. I remember when I first talked to you, actually during the interview, you were super casual about everything, which I loved. But you mentioned, English isn't your first language. And even though it's not your first, you try to read a lot of books and really get familiar with the, I guess, vocabulary and expand it. And from that standpoint, I think a lot of people would guess that that same person would not start a podcast in English.
Yeah.
But here you are, you're doing all these things, which I'm sure is outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, definitely. And it's beyond the language because, I'm not used to, and I don't really like public speaking. And even though it's just the two of us here, having the microphone, I mean, now I'm getting used to it. But in the beginning, I was really feared. Like I was really scared from just opening the mic and talking.
Yeah, no, this is my second or third time. I still feel it to this day. It's just different to a normal conversation. I feel like once you're recorded, I think everyone has that like stage fright or fear of presenting or fear of being recorded actually. So I think we're all pushing ourselves today.
Yeah, exactly. So with that note and no further ado, let's jump into our inspiring discussion with Andre. Hi and welcome to the 8th episode of the Design Explorers. Yuki and I are here today with Andre, one of our senior product designers. Andre recently has started a design studio, which is a dedicated platform for knowledge sharing between the more experienced designers and new joiners or anyone who is facing different challenges with their work and projects in our team. By providing practical guided frameworks and inspiring use cases, more seasoned designer can help the less experienced one with their weaknesses through this platform. We invited Andre here today to tell us the story behind this design studio and also maybe talk a bit about his awesome passion for making some 3D art. Welcome to the show, Andre.
Hey guys, thank you for having me on the show. I'm super excited. And I'm also even more excited about the prospect that you would make me sound like Idris Elba in the post. So thanks, Nahum and Yuki.
We promise to do our best.
So I'm ready to get started. Near Idris Elba is fine also. I don't mind.
We will do our best.
Thank you.
So Andre, maybe let's start by giving our listeners some background, about who you are, how long have you been at Agoda?
So first off, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. And I have been with Agoda for I think exactly 3 years now, as of this month. So hooray for that. So I joined Agoda way back, and I think 2019. And right now I worked across the core, which is our main funnel on Agoda for quite a while. And right now I'm working at Agoda Special Offers, which is this brand new sort of business that we've sort of come out with. It's quite exciting. And as of right now, I run something called the Agoda Design Studio with Agoda, which is a new learning initiative, which is what we all here to sort of talk about.
Awesome. And that's exactly lead us to the next question. Maybe you can explain to us and tell us what is exactly the Design Studio.
All right. So essentially, I think what Design Studio is, like I would capture it in 3 words. It would be simple, actionable, and relevant. So I would say it's more, it's basically quick learnings for immediate value, right? So I think when we started this endeavor sometime back, we wanted a way to, sort of level up the team really fast. And especially considering that, the world moves so fast. The design world itself is, like at one point we were all learning, kind of working on Sketch and abstract, and the next minute we are all on Figma, and tomorrow who knows what's next, right? And it's just not about design. It's not only design tools, but methods and ways of using things. So we always have to constantly be challenging ourselves. And I think Design Studio is sort of that, that initiative that helps us all sort of challenge ourselves to grow, to learn, but not only as an individual, but also as like sort of as an entire team, as an entire organism. So that's what it is in a nutshell. I would sort of, if I had to say, like, capture it in 2 words, it would be practical learning. That's it.
And who is it mainly for?
So, so actually, that's a good question. It's obviously for the presenter, the audience. I think those are the main two actors in this scenario over here. So, the presenter, basically works on topic, works on a presentation. They come in with those actionable learnings, and there's an audience who sort of absorbs it like a sponge and kind of, but it's not just a, like, I don't want it to be just only that format.
Right.
I think it should be a more reactive format, or that's what I wanted to grow into, a more reactive format where the presenter comes in with a radical idea, a radical new learning, but also the audience comes in and they kind of work together and challenge each other. So for the presenter, I think it's for the presenter, they need to learn to present, or rather it's for them to learn to present. And it's not that we just throw them in the deep end, right? It's, as a presenter, the learning starts way before, wherein we try and give them actionable coaching. I think Nahum, if I remember clearly, you were also there in the initial, sort of initial building blocks of Agoda Studio. And at that point itself, we established that, one of the biggest learnings for the presenter is that we give them actionable coaching from us, as well as the leadership team, right? The manager can coach them, the PMs can coach them into kind of, and not only that, also us, into becoming better presenters, becoming more confident, learning how to tell a story, learning how to grow minds as such. For the audience, it's a no-brainer. It's also to learn something that they can practically adapt, but they're they're just not just there to learn, but also to provide more information back, right? It's like that feedback that helps that organization grow, right? Like take for example that data is one of the subjects, right? So what if, I mean, just having a mute audience, just accepting it all in without questioning, without challenging, without asking why, I think it won't be as impactful as when that happens, right? So, and then there's a third unknown sort of actor behind the scenes, which is the leadership. And I think they play a huge role in this, right? To not only coach and support, but also to come in and and talk about things that only leaders can sort of talk about, right? So just to give an example, we have this awesome leader on our team called Leah. And I do remember when we did have our initial one-on-ones together, she herself was extremely excited about this, and she actually nominated a person, a really talented designer, Ali, on her team, to come and talk about data experimentation. And she not only did that, but she also gave, behind the scenes, she gave actionable feedback. She gave a lot of coaching to Ali herself, and help enable it, right? And what we got as an end result was a fantastic thing, and it helped really uplift that level of data, that level of data culture that we have at Agoda. So I think the design leadership plays a huge integral part in in this whole level up process that design studio brings along with it.
Yeah, and I like how you summed it up as a practical learning and learning that they can actually use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how you mentioned or emphasized a lot of the practical aspect of the program or design studio, and I was interested in why this initiative even came up in the first place. Yeah, what was the reasoning behind this idea?
That's actually a great question. And I think we've had many efforts at sort of jump starting, I would say, or starting initiatives like this. I think we had one a few years ago called Skillshare, which was pretty good. We got a lot of, we got a lot of actionable learnings. But as things sort of progress, these type of things is hard to keep it up, right? So, um, but I think it's very important for a team to actually have some sort of learning initiative, because I think being in Microsoft and also speaking to a lot of people in a lot of other companies, right? A lot of them do have some such initiatives, and I think that's one of the hallmarks of a mature design team. Just the same way, if you would look at it, right, as an individual, what makes you a mature designer, right? The fact that you can accept feedback, right, learn from that, take from it, and sort of use those things to learn and grow. Now, applied to the entire organism of the design team, right? We get feedback, we internalize it, we learn from it, right? And then we kind of start teaching ourselves and growing into those aspects of things. So I think it's sort of a jumpstart of lessons learned from a lot of previous initiatives. But I think it's very important. So when I spoke to my manager Shane, he sort of brought about this fact that, hey, listen, you know what? We need something like Agoda Studio, and we need to partner up. We need to learn from our mistakes, and we need to try to figure out something that can work well with in Agoda. So as a whole, like if you look at the DNA of what Agoda is, we are all about moving fast and experimenting, right? So I think this iteration or this incarnation of Design Studio is starting to work well with that ethos itself. Yeah.
Now, Andrea, I've seen you working on this project, and you are very passionate about it. And I think you can even hear it in your voice, the passion. So maybe you can tell us, where is this passion coming from? Why are you so passionate about it?
Um. All right. So I think so. Actually, that's a really good question, and I think it would be a very long podcast if I had to talk about it like as my whole life story. So I'm just gonna keep it short. So actually, I'm actually from an education background also. Like like I was a professor at the prestigious Xavier's Institute of Communication, back home in India, in Bombay. So I think one of the top journalism colleges in Asia actually. And over there, I had a module where I taught writing for the internet, basically blogging, writing for various websites. But I'm also sort of a published writer, so I think this falls in line with what I'm doing pretty well, because while I've never had the opportunity to create a syllabus, right, or rather, I've always had, but I've been mentored by a lot of really world class professors in creating syllabuses, right? So I think this is merging those two worlds. I think this was a natural fit for me because I am sort of passionate about learning. I love presenting. Of course, I do have stage fright like everybody else in the world, but I do love, I do love the act of learning, right, as a whole. And I always find new ways of kind of, upskilling myself. And I do speak, like, I think everybody I've spoken on the team always has their zest to learn, right? So I keep conversing with everybody, and everybody has said, hey, you know what? I actually spend my weekend learning, this. I learned this. I'm excited to share it, right? So I realize in all those conversations that designers were equally excited about learning and also sharing. And that kind of sparked, something in my mind. And, like, I think Nahum, you know me, right? Like I get like super excited. I get like, I vibrate when, there's an
And
idea.
it's so
And I think
contagious, seeing you with this passion.
yeah, if you remember our first few meetings, we were kind of there, talking, talking each other's ears off. We were kind of like making those mistakes, but I think
Right.
those were important in kind of learning, in kind of getting that learning experience out there. That would be great for our audience at Agoda and Agoda Design.
And yeah, it's interesting how you kind of got started into this with all your passion in education and talking to people, learning. The designers really enjoy the process of teaching as much as learning themselves. I think when from the moment where you had this moment of passion where you were vibrating, as you said. How did you kind of translate that into action, and what were some of the challenges that you faced throughout the way? Because I presume like who should be presenting, who should be learners, these types of questions come out along the way. How did you kind of what principles actually helped you make these decisions?
I think that's actually a great question, and just sort of framing my answer to to sort of the very beginning. I think what we realized was, and I think I've had a lot of conversations with several designers. What we realized was jumping into what I affectionately call the TED Talk format. And I know you can't see it here, but I'm doing air quotes. The whole TED Talk format, we've seen it sort of hit and miss, right? And I knew for a fact that, I mean, my initial thought was, hey, you know what, let's just do a series of TED Talks, and kind of people were happy. But I think, sort of kind of pushing myself and challenging myself, I had a lot of intimate one-on-ones with a lot of the designers that on the team, and I realized that this was so much more, right? Like, I think a lot of designers opened up and got really personal about their learning experiences, about how they like to learn, but also about the state of the world today, right? I think you have to realize that when this initiative was being born, like, we in Bangkok were like in lockdown, right? So there was a huge shift in the way people were thinking, right? After almost a year of not being in lockdown, we were in lockdown again. So I think there were a lot of fears, a lot of thoughts that were sort of creeping up, a lot of in terms of uh, you know like what's going to happen out there with this whole kind of numbers increasing and everything. And I think uh, there was a need for positivity, like, through all of this. So I think that was the biggest challenge, right? Like, that is why I added positivity into one of our sort of tenants over here. So positive actionable learning, right? What can we bring to the table that make you feel good about yourself? um like, to sort of expand upon this, like, think about the act of learning itself, right? Let's imagine if we brought about a TED talk straight up and said, hey, you know what, we're going to teach you the entire, like 500 pages of data, a book on data, into one talk. Like, all of a sudden you're like, by the end of it, you probably felt like you've not learned anything. But what if we gave you the means to get started, right? That was what came out of those one-on-ones. Most of the designers that we spoke to felt, hey, I want to learn this, but how do I get started, right? What is the first step I need to take? And that's when it kind of dawned on us as a collective that, hey, you know what, we need to empower people to take the first steps, because after that they will take the second and third and fourth steps on their own, or we can provide them those steps in kind of advanced learning things, right? So that was one of the first challenges that we kind of overcame. I think the second challenge is connecting designers to topics. I think that's one thing that we are still sort of solving. Is we have a lot of we have a lot of designers who are passionate about a lot of things. I think it's about finding where those passions lie, and connecting it to that group of designers that need it, right? So we one of the solutions was we structure it into learnings into a lot of the smaller teams and a lot of the larger teams, right? So there could be org-wide learnings, but they could also be learnings that could matter to a smaller team first, because they could action on that faster, and then move it outwards to sort of other teams. So that was one of the biggest challenges that we have facing now. And I think another challenge is getting folks outside their comfort zone to embrace this. I think that's one of the biggest, one of the biggest challenges. And but hey, it sort of takes a village, right? So I think that's when the whole team sort of came in, lent a hand, and said, hey, you know what, I would love to do something like this, but I need that courage. So I want to talk about, I spoke about Leah earlier, and now we'll talk about Ali, who's the designer who sort of really stepped out of her comfort zone, and and kind of put herself out there, right? You know what? I want to talk about this. I'm passionate about experimentation. I'm passionate about organization. Let's put those two together, you know, and, and she actually built a framework around it. And, you know, Agoda Design Studio actually provided a platform to kind of, to kind of sell that concept, to kind of get that concept out there. And now we have several people actually using that experimentation platform, all because Ali decided, you know what, I want to get out of my comfort zone. I just want to go talk about this and get it out there. Right. I think that's the hardest thing. But her courage has actually infected a lot of people, because we've had people, sort of coming up to us and saying, hey, I have this thing I want to sort of talk about. You know, like, can you schedule me? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, so those are the challenges that we face so far.
We mentioned in the beginning, we talked about your passion for making 3D art. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because it helped you in the beginning to launch the initiative. And I think there's a very cool story here that can be inspiring for our listeners. So do you mind sharing with us, how did you use your other passion, which is making 3D, to help you to initiate this project?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. Uh, so I do hope you've like asked all your questions, because this is going to be taking up the rest of the podcast. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But actually, like the the 3D art thing actually started off is one of those lockdown things that you learn. And I think last year it was like, we were kind of locked down for about 2 months or 3 months in Thailand. And at that point of time, I said, hey, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool to do that? I was actually inspired by a lot of the stuff happening at the Apple conferences. So I said, you know what? How hard it could be, right? So I just taught myself, sort of 3D. I taught myself Blender
Wait,
and
so
Octane.
it's only started last year?
Yeah, it's only started
Wow.
last year.
You're doing really cool
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, thanks. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I did watch a lot of tutorials, had a lot of time too. So, and I think, I kept at it, right? Like, no matter what, it was always an escape for me to go do 3D stuff, create 3D things, right? I especially like those dynamics. So you set like a few things, and there's the 3D software sort of like grows flowers or stuff like that. I always love those things. So I think that kind of got me, like, I looked at it as my safe space. And when sort of it came to the design studio, all of a sudden it logically connected in my mind. Hey, you know what? Here's something that I learned, and I want to use this to kind of talk about design studio. And when I was sort of talking to my manager, Shane, we kind of realized that, hey, you know what? Maybe we can kind of bring both those worlds together, right? I think if we are doing something, we need to advertise the heck out of it, right? So
Right.
I think I decided to use that 3D passion and sort of start building things. And I think for I think Agoda Studio launch, I actually worked on a sort of a really cool, nifty 3D movie on like flowers growing dynamically and stuff like that, which was kind of well received though. We showed it on our video call software, which was, I think, like ran at like 2 frames per second, and my video was like 60 fps render. It kind of looked really bad, so I had to kind of share it on Slack, but it's okay.
It was awesome. I actually thought you were doing this for years.
No, it's just 1 year, but yeah, I mean, I'm still a noob when it comes to a lot of things. So I think I kind of want to use this to practice my skills.
Nice.
So I think so now when somebody wants to kind of join into Agora Studio and they want to learn, or they want to kind of teach, what I do is I have like a sort of a format wherein I understand what they're about, understand what their topic is, and then I go and challenge myself to sort of create like an action sheet in 3D to kind of put it out there to sort of blast advertise their talk, just like how they do in like these larger conferences. So I think it's kind of exciting. It also keeps me keeps those creative juices flowing. But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's actually really awesome how you kind of combined your own passion and saw the space to share some of that passion yourself. So you combined your own passion with the story of creating this design studio as a platform to share ideas, and you wanted others to kind of also share their own ideas, because you think that there's a lot of that already happening, but we just need another platform to kind of broadcast those knowledge that is being learned throughout the day. And I'm not sure where I'm leading to with this question, but
Yeah, it's interesting how you use the word share. I would probably change it to showing off. But yeah, I mean, if you want to use the word share, it's fine.
showing off. No, that's a great thing too, right? I mean, because you also mentioned the recipient, the beneficiary of this program. Is it just the person that's listening to these talks? It's the people that are giving these presentations as well, and I think that's great. And I think in the future, what do you kind of foresee this program to stand for in the future? If someone asks, like, what did design studio do and impact Agoda's design team, what do you think, or what do you want that answer to be?
If I was so I've thought about this a lot. It's I think but every time, like, I kind of wrap my head around this sort of question, and believe me, I've asked this question to myself a lot. I think the only thing that pops to my mind is a future of a team without fear, right? I think we've had a couple of conversations around this too, but that's something I fervently believe in, because I think we are inherently afraid, not as a team. I'm just saying human beings are always inherently afraid at times that, there's always a new mountain, right? I've just climbed a mountain, right? And I just see there are like 20 mountains in the distance, so which is why we are like, hey, you know what, I'll just kind of just block out the view, and I'm chilling on this mountain, that I am on. I think the goal for Agoda Design Studio, one of the goals that I always envisioned, is that, hey, what if we opened up? Like, don't be afraid, because those mountains are there within your reach, right? We'll help you get there. And as a team, as a huge, like, as I said, as that one organism, we can move towards it together, right? And in multiple directions. So I think, what I want, and is us to not sort of fear learning, but actually, kind of embrace it and kind of move it. And that is what I want to kind of imbibe with Design Studio. And I do know, I mean, like, and this is not just me, this is something that I've gleaned from a lot of the, like, one-on-ones with designers, because I know, like, many of our designers, if not all, are never too afraid to learn something new, right? Hey, from a new software to a new sort of framework, they're always learning, growing, and looking at ways of adapting it, right? But it's about taking those fearless learnings and adapting it across the, like, across the org wide thing. So that's one way, like, sort of role I envision it. The second role is to sort of level up the team quickly, right? So I mean, like, I've touched upon this earlier in this recording, where we talked about how quickly paradigm shifts are happening, right? Like, today it could be, let's say, jobs to be done framework. Tomorrow it could be another framework that would work well in the context of Agoda, right? um Agoda Studio is one of those things that can easily leverage and grow the design team into those particular frameworks fast, right? And that's the goal, and I think so. I think one of the things during the various lockdowns, especially now during the world, we've embraced, like, usertesting.com a lot more, right? I think that is one of those low hanging fruits that we have used the power of Agoda Studio to kind of leverage, the greater team in large, to kind of user testing everything. And the third thing that I'm thinking about, and I think, now we've had like a few conversations, and even with Rochelle, about onboarding, right? Like, there is a future on onboarding. especially when sort of new blood joins our team.
Mm.
I think the design studio is a perfect way to onboard them quickly on methodologies that we sort of want, sort of people to grow into, want people to hit the ground running would be the right term that I would use it. So yeah, so that's my vision. It's by no means small visions, but hey, I'll I'm, they're ambitious.
No, I really like how you using knowledge as a tool to empower a designer and build their confidence.
Yeah, I mean that is true. I think that without fear aspect, I think that is another hallmark of mature designers, right? I mean, yeah, there's no mountain I won't climb, right? There's no road that's too far enough for me to kind of, right? As long as I get to that destination, as long as it enables me to kind of learn more and grow more, I'll take that one step at a time. And I think that is the ethos that I want to imbibe over here.
Wow. That's
Deep words,
actually,
right?
yeah, very deep actually. I think I believe this term is in psychology, but it's called psychological safety, where people are willing to kind of share it within a group setting, without the fear of being an outcast, with having different opinions or something like that. And so I think that kind of speaks to that as well. But I think you also added another dimension to the fear of, I believe, imposter syndrome, in a sense where, you only climbed one mountain, but you have 20 more to go. But I think having this program accept that you don't have to have complete knowledge of something to share it. It can still be a work in progress, but you embrace that work in progress and give them a platform to share in case that something new happens, or to keep the team agile in terms of updating the team with new knowledge as well. And so there's a lot of ambitious goals that this design studio is trying to fill, but it's also great how you've kind of encompassed all those things together into a single program that is Design Studio. So I'm really amazed by all the visions that you have created and embedded within this program.
Yeah, thank you. And to just sort of rewind back to something that you had mentioned just now, Yuki, which is on imposter syndrome. I think when I touched upon the term positivity, right? I think when we sort of spoke to a lot of designers, I think the underlying tone is that the underlying tone of strength is a lot of designers felt that imposter syndrome. You know, a lot of designers felt that alone. I mean, being alone, right? Sometimes. So I think the whole one aspect of design studios to embrace that positivity and bring it out to show that, hey, you know what? We actually did. I think Rochelle, one of our designers, did a mini talk or a lightning share on on imposter syndrome and how to beat it. And it was surprising that a lot of us kind of felt that because all of us were kind of cooped up in our homes. A lot of the lockdown things we were starting to learn again. Many people were actually home alone as such, right? So I think bringing that positive, bringing that learning, I think really helped them.
Yeah, I can even resonate with it. Even personally, I have this feeling of imposter syndrome, even doing this podcast and hosting. And I think I mentioned it before. And what you're doing, you're providing not just knowledge, but the way to practice and build that confidence, which is really great.
Yeah, I think the underlying message is, what, everybody's there for a reason, right? You're here, you're doing this because you're one of the best at it. It's so remember
Right.
that and keep working at it, right? And that's where learning comes in also. I feel that learning is something that always reinforces things. It always kind of sets that heart ablaze, right? Oh man, I'm learning something new. You feel great at the end of the day, right? You attain some form of wisdom, and now you can kind of chill and apply it. Not like chill chill and apply it.
We talked about the vision. Maybe you can share with us, how do you plan to scale this? Like, what are the next steps? The things that you can share.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. In fact, it was something that I've been mulling over these last few these last couple of weeks actually, like about scaling it. I think now that we're sort of confident on the approach, that kind of tested it across a few sessions, like quite confident about the approach. So I think right now we want to bring in people. First we want to bring in people from other departments, right? Like I think I can think of 10 different product managers that could bring actionable learnings to us from anything, right? From anything and everything, right? From, I think one of the biggest asks was, how do you build great relationships with your with your product peers, with engineering, right? I think we can get that started, and I think that would be one of the first steps to do. Bring people from within, maybe people from business, people from people from marketing to kind of talk to us, people from supply, um, you know, to bring actionable learnings. I still have to think as to in what context, but definitely from other departments as one. And as we scale up, and as the sort of as Bangkok opens up, as the world opens up, and since remote work is quite predominant right now, maybe we look at bringing in people from different walks of life, different sort of other industries, maybe different companies, to kind of come in and share their learnings, share how they do things, right? I think there's so many open-ended questions on quite a lot of things, like what is, like craft is one of them. They're so vague and subjective sometimes, but yet we do have a lot of benchmarks on them. So it'd be good to learn where and what all these benchmarks are in the in in the industry in large. So I think those are the two things that I want to do for Design Studio. And the third thing would be to grow it even more, right? Right now we've had we just do one or two sort of studio sessions per month, but I want to kind of increase it to a little bit more. As But again, it's about reading the room, right? you know Trying to get more time, trying to get more people to give us their time. So still trying to figure out those sort of logistics around it. But yeah, definitely more Design Studio, more time, people from outside, people from other departments.
Awesome. I love it. And I'm sure there are a lot of rooms to grow in terms of inviting other guests from different departments,
Yeah.
cross department collaboration, and things like that. But I guess from a person who initiated this program, and as a teacher or previous teacher yourself, like what kind of word of advice or tip for the audience do you have?
Like I think uh, it would always be to be passionate, right, about learning. I know this sounds kind of cheesy, like you see it at those cafes and stuff like that, like ignite your passions, like sort of like a you know you know, cold drink commercial of some sort. But yeah, I mean, uh, I think uh, I think it comes from you need to keep stoking those fires of curiosity. I think it's all stems from there, right? I think the day you stop being curious is the day you kind of accept, like you're withering away. Is the day you wither away, rather, right? I mean, I think designers in large, and designers in our field, right, like product designers in large, are curious by nature, which makes us all the more easy. So but if you ever find yourself losing that kind of curiosity to find out, hey, like there's like I think in my vocabulary there's never such a line to say that what does that button do, because I'm just going to go and press it. you know and I think that's a good thing, right? If you see a button, even if it's red, and if it says will launch nuclear missiles, right? I mean, you probably would press it because, like, curious to see, oh, is that sign true? You can edit this out if you want. I'm not sure if we can say this at all, but kind of struck me. But yeah, I mean, if you see a big button out there, right? Like that curiosity would like internally kill me if I don't kind of try and figure out what that does, right? If one press it, I'll ask people around. But always be curious. Always be that like hungry for knowledge, right? And always keep doing things. I think that's like that's the only sort of piece of advice I would probably give, would be just keep doing this, right? If you have an idea rattling in your mind, like flesh it out, as give yourself a design challenge, just flesh it out. You will find 10 things in that one design challenge that you do for yourself. You'll find 10 things that you can learn, right? Or 10 things you will learn. And if, let's say, you started on a weekend, like I think last weekend, if you start something, probably by the end of Sunday you'll still be kind of tinkering at it, and you'll be still kind of making it perfect, and you'll be having the time of your life, because that's what life is. Again, to get deep.
Now that's awesome, and it's a great way to end up this show. Very optimistic, and the passion is obviously, in your voice, and I think our listener heard the passion in your voice. So thank you so much, Andre, for coming today and sharing all this.
Thank you, Nahum and Yuki, for having me on the show. It was quite exciting. And, to all of you out there, like, keep that growth mindset growing. Keep that grit to learn. And stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you are listening, and share it with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to subscribe to our show to get notified when we are releasing a new episode. And if you want to learn more about the work of the design team at Agoda, visit agoda.design. Thanks again for listening, and hope to see you in our next episode.